are these people?
The government has grown a lot of balls since the past couple years. We've known that like the agenda behind privatizing water has already been like in the talks for a while, but now it's completely out loud. It is they're saying it to your face.
Yeah, and it's not even like a discussion. They're more like, oh, we should do
It's more
this.
like we should do this.
Yeah.
So now we know, thanks to CISA, a CISA document, that the Biden administration is, or at least someone in the Biden administration, is looking to privatize the water supply. This is an article from Peter Coffin, who shout out to Peter Coffin. I know there was like a Common Dreams article on this. I thought it sucked. I thought this was like a way better article.
Common Dreams is like
Common Dreams. Well, Common Dreams is fucking like they're liberal. It's liberal bullshit at this point. Like I used to like them when I was like a little like less awake, but
exactly.
Now I see the agenda that they're pushing, and now it's like okay, now
it's like Jacobin. It's like Jacobin.
Exactly. But I mean, shout out, Peter Coffin had a good, really good take on this, but. Today, the ruling class doesn't have to hide its agenda. Rather than classify everything, they can openly disclose without promotion, letting information get lost in endless content, such as the report from the Biden administration's National Infrastructure Advisory Council, which the Food and Water Watch brought to light, which have been on this for years, which they're really good. The report would likely have otherwise gone unnoticed, and outlined within the document is an endorsement to privatize American water systems. Yes, really. And this is the openly fantastic thing that I've seen from the U.S. admin in my lifetime. RPUM defines fascism as a terrorist dictatorship of big capital, resulting from crisis arising from capitalism's contradictions and inherent instability.
Okay, is it worth kind of simplifying that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, that kind of really puts together what we were talking about last time with
just
imperialism, capitalism.
Like, driving home that fascism is not an aesthetic. It's actually when
we live in a fascist state. This is a
corporate power is making all the rules.
It's not a question. We're living in a fascist country. This is not a question anymore.
Yeah, I know, especially from being terminally online, we like to throw around the word fascist, but there's like an actual freaking.
But the fascist government, right? They're all of them.
All the Western ones, it's all more or less the same. But yeah,
more or less, yeah. You can see what's happening in Nigeria and France. All these imperial powers come together, but here he sort of like outlines like the ongoing water crisis that we have. It's going on. So with the increasing concerns over the stability of our nation's critical infrastructure, the NIAC report articulated potential ramifications. So the infrastructure of the U.S. is a pressing issue. Water is a problem more widespread than people might realize. People will probably recognize Flint, Michigan, led to national.
I have a great name for that one.
Flint, that poison water. No one has to remember.
That was Flint. Was what? By the way, Flint was what? 12 years ago. Still doesn't have clean water.
More than that, yeah. 12 years ago, no, still no clean water. Still no clean water at all. What about Florida? What's it called? There was another city that.
Well, there was East Palestine back a few months ago. They're not doing shit
East
there.
Palestine, but I remember either Georgia or Florida.
Oh yeah, there was a Jacksonville.
Either Jacksonville is like
Kansas, Kansas, or something like that. There was another place. Yeah, I'd have to find that. But we have a history of just kind of letting our infrastructure go to shit and then pretending that it's not as bad as it is.
Yeah. The 2023 NAAC report,
Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you, Dr. Nick. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yes,
I did that meme, and it was like a banger. So I remember that.
In 2018, Cape Town, South Africa, city of 4 million people, faced the possibility of day zero, when a day taps in a city would run dry. Persistent droughts for 3 years, increasingly harsh measures. That had not sufficed. Fortunately, the rains came, reservoirs were replenished. And could a day zero happen in the U.S.? anyone with proximity to or the acknowledgement of issues like Michigan, we should be able to realize that these are real issues that people are dealing with, and that beyond water, we can consistently see our infrastructure collapsing and failing across the country, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because, like I said, we are living in a post-capitalist collapse.
Like we can, it's self-evident, right, that if we're at the point where corporations are now like, we need to privatize all water, that's kind of should be like a signal to people that society's falling apart.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I moved to Colorado years ago, in much of Colorado, I want to say a lot of Colorado, I knew people who had illegal runoff tanks on the back of their houses because Colorado does not allow you to collect runoff because the Colorado River water is also leased out to freaking Nevada and California, I think. So we're not allowed to collect rainwater. Like that's how, like, this shit's been going on fucking forever. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
They have like similar language, like more enterprises engaging net zero or zero liquid discharge go out.
Come on. We're going to be recycling our fucking toilet water, freaking cook our pasta.
So this is really where the juice is. Rising incidents of water crisis create the need for holistic emergency management. Wonder what that is. Water is a lifeline sector that serves communities, industries, and businesses daily and has the power to bring them back to normal after disaster. As stated previously, community water systems are not typically connected to adjacent systems, unlike electricity and transportation infrastructure, which are interconnected to national networks. Here it is with the climate change. With climate change and increasing water scarcity, as long as the high-intensity precipitation events, the number of significant water crises dramatically increased. So this is like the train that they're
the premise.
This is how we deliver this water crisis. We need to have climate change mixed in there. Maybe we can throw in like a transphobia somehow. I don't know how.
Make it about trans rights.
Yeah, and
I mean, of course, it goes without saying. Of course, we'd know it. They'd make it about fucking climate change.
Recommendations to aid infrastructure owners and operators: create, incentivize, and enforce standards for water use and quality. Promote at the state, tribal, and local levels that new development demonstrates access to a sustainable water supply. Streamline to the permitting process, which can take 8 to 10 years. Incorporating regulatory teeth, in quotations, into source water protection.
Can we just take a moment to recognize that, like, this is what happens when you commoditize fucking water?
Fucking water!
They're trying to freaking tell you how to appropriately use water. What, are you going to push a button and for 30 seconds the like lukewarm water is going to come out of your freaking shower hose?
Oh, we already don't tax food. Like, we understand that that's like, okay, we sort of need this, and it would be kind of ridiculous if I had to pay the government every time I needed something that I literally need to live. And now we're going. Let's make it private. Let's privatize the whole thing. No one can have water.
Or no. That's not the excuse. What capitalists say: no one can have water. Anybody can have water if
you have the money.
If you want the water, it's there for you to purchase. No one's stopping you from buying the water.
They'll make it. Well, that's the framing. It's like it's the freedom of being able to purchase your own water, which should be free in the fucking first.
And it's like what I was telling you yesterday. It's like you're not even buying water; you're buying the plastic water bottle.
Yes, exactly.
Like the water was already there. These companies like Nestle are not in the business of making water; they're in the business of packaging it.
Absolutely not. We're gonna show some stuff about that too. Look at this. Remove barriers to new ways of funding water projects. They're literally saying
they're going to IMF ourselves.
Look, remove barriers to privatization, concessions, other non-traditional models of funding community water systems. Get rid of it. Stop the public water system. Allow access to privately owned water providers to Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. There's the
That's straight up fascism.
Support incentivize regionalized of water systems by reviewing the state capacity development policies and ensure beneficial regionalization. Blah, blah, blah. A safe harbor from regulatory penalties. They want no one can be sued.
Free
They don't want
liability.
anyone. They don't want to get into any trouble. And
This
absorb
is
trouble
crazy,
systems for a
dude.
reasonable time period.
What's gonna be the thing that's going to freaking drive people to go to people's houses and start taking matters in their own hands? Because water might be it. You tell people, oh hey, you can only have freaking 2 liters of water a day for your family of 3 or 4. Like, you're gonna have people start getting violent. This is crazy.
I'm looking up. Yeah, look. Remove barriers to new ways.
So all that means, okay, so that's freaking crazy to me, because that sounds like basically like, how part of how we do imperialism on other countries is we privatize resources and we create funding to privatize those resources. And things have gotten so bad that we're doing it to ourselves now. We're going to create even more debt for ourselves by the government subsidizing private companies like Nestle to sell water back to us. This world is broken.
And if anyone remembers, there does happen to be a rare video that no one can seem to find on YouTube of the CEO of Nestle saying water is not a human right.
You guys might have heard this before, but this is like, it comes up once in a while. And just to let you know, this has been memory hold to what on
you
YouTube.
Cannot find it anywhere.
They work their asses off.
Thank God for Alan McLeod. I don't know how this is not taken down already, but I'll say some of the subtitles.
Okay.
Rohmaterial, das wir heute noch auf der Welt haben. Und es geht darum, ob wir das normale Wasserversorgung der Bevölkerung privatisieren oder nicht. Und da gibt es 2 verschiedene Anschauungen. Die eine Anschauung, extrem würde ich sagen, wird von einigen von den NGOs vertreten, die darauf pochen, dass Wasser zu einem öffentlichen Recht erklärt wird. Das heißt, als Mensch sollten sie einfach Recht haben, Wasser zu haben.
It sounds crazy, right?
Amazing.
Das ist die eine Extremlösung. Ja? Und die andere, die sagt, Wasser ist ein Lebensmittel, so wie jedes andere Lebensmittel, sollte das einen Marktwert haben. Ich persönlich glaube, es ist besser, man gibt einem Lebensmittel einen Wert, sodass wir alle bewusst sind, dass das etwas kostet, und dann anschließend versucht, dass man mehr spezifisch für diesen Teil der Bevölkerung, der keinen Zugang zu diesem Wasser hat, dass man dann dort etwas spezifischer eingreift, und da gibt es ja verschiedene Möglichkeiten. Also.
Man, there's so many things wrong with this fucking minute. It's just like the idea that water exists and therefore we should have the right to sell it, and therefore because it has the right to sell it, it has some value attached to it, and we should be able to make money.
That is
it's like, such a depraved
I don't even think a libertarian would agree with. I think if you talk to a normal libertarian, I don't even think they would take this. Well, no, I'm pretty.
I don't know.
I'm pretty positive that a libertarian would be like, no, this is insane. Maybe I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. Maybe there's some like insane people out there, but. Thanks.
It's a free market. If it's a free market, just get a job from.
You want your water? Well, it has a price. Sorry.
Freaking crazy. But
he talks. Peter. The reason I like this article is because Peter talks a lot about. He's a Marxist, communist, and he talks a lot about theory within the context of like current day things, which I really enjoy. So. I'll read a little bit of some of this here. To privatize the water system is to create the basis to deny an essential building block of life. Many different schemes might be proposed proposed too, in which they might be said that no one will be not denied water. Still, taking ownership of water and related infrastructure away from public removes its accountability to the public good. When something is publicly owned, the public is at least supposed to have recourse. While it certainly is imperfect, water and infrastructure should be accountable to all and not a board of capitalists capable of acting like beyond their class interests. And the dyed and wool conservatives I've spoken to agree entirely with me on this issue. Like I said, I don't even think a libertarian would think this. I think a libertarian would think this is insane.
I mean, who are the people really pushing this? Is it just the freaking like oligarchs and like upper echelon capitalists that are doing this, or is this kind of like a conservative or even like corporate wing of the Democrat Party kind of thing that they're pushing? Because it seems to me that the whole privatizing water thing has been going back and forth for freaking decades, and now it's just getting to the point where they're like, no, we want to privatize all of it, and you're not going to have any choice.
Yeah,
you know, and we're gonna do it off the premise of 15-minute cities, and if you go over your limit, we're gonna charge you out the ass for it. It's just nightmare after nightmare.
Today we're seeing a more complex, progressive justification, like I showed you. Climate change. It's more important to say that I'm not here to tell you that climate change doesn't exist or that humans have no effect, but that there's plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. However, the climate change framework is presented as a spectacle rather than scientifically endlessly.
Wow. Thank you, Coffin, for making such a fucking great point there. That's actually a really salient point. I'm glad that he mentions that.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to show this. Like prompting pessimism and nihilism, that this is leverageable as justification that they should own the fucking water. Science is an ongoing. We're seeing this with COVID. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the active. This is the train. This is the activator of how they take away every single last right that you have. I saw an article today that showed like the anti-chipping movement.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna pull that up. But
so while you're pulling that up, do you remember a couple years ago there was that psychologist or academic Matthias Desmet, and he posited the whole like mass formation psychosis thing, and like that was during the beginning of COVID. People were freaking out and all that stuff, and you know it got debunked a lot. And I think they're still trying to use that kind of mass psychosis as a way to freak people out to get to the point where they're like, oh, I guess we really need to conserve water. I guess we really need to conserve our energy. Oh my God.
Anti-chippers are the latest group of awful people we now have to worry about. This is the new COVIDian. This is the new angle that they attach to that.
They're really trying.
Like, now if you don't want the chip, if you don't want the chip, you're a Trumper now. That's the way they roll. It's like through this progressive justification, exactly like he says. And science is an ongoing effort that ultimately works toward the discovery of solutions, but science experts in the media often shit on technological solutions. Further, we need to stop seeing, carbon as a problem. Like, we explained the actual effects of climate change. Science can be manipulated to serve political and economic agendas.
I'm glad he's bringing up Bookchin because I got some stuff to say about that. Oh, well, he's actually invoking a little bit of anarchist theory here, but like basically he's making a really good point here that the issue is not that we're like developing new technologies. And, I think most of us can agree that in the right hands, or when it's not incentivized by profit, technology can be great for everybody. Okay. Like, what's his name?
If it's not based on profit, yeah.
Like Kropotkin wrote in Conquest of Bread, he was basically like, if we had the means of production, we would automate the shit out of everything, so we had more time for ourselves, and thus technology was serving us. But the problem is that the technology is serving capitalists, and they're not going to do it so that we can have 10-hour work weeks. They're going to do it so that we can have 40-hour work weeks and work 3 times harder than we do now.
This is a good point here. Climate change is a convenient means to demand ideological alignment of the subordinate class, as anarchist Murray Bookchin specifically did, whether he realizes it or not. This is a quote from him. Questions of growth, profit, and the future of the planet are no longer single issues or clash issues, but human and ecological issues.
They're virtue signals.
Exactly. This removal of the consideration of the class divide enables a high strata of the ruling capitalist class to bring a lower capitalist strata to the reactionary elements of the working classes into service, leading into illusion theorists like Hannah Enderfeld for the assertion. The characteristic feature of fascism is that, in a consequence of a shock suffered by the capitalist economic system and the special objective and subjective circumstances, the bourgeoisie utilizes the discontent of the petty and the middle, urban and rural bourgeoisie, and even certain strata of the D-class proletariat for the purpose of creating a reactionary mass movement. And this is what we see in all of the destabilized countries. All of these like right-wing movements like start popping up. This happened in Yugoslavia, I can tell you that for sure. Like the economy collapses, fascism increases, right-wing, like the conservative, like reactionary. It doesn't have to necessarily be conservative, just a very extreme reactionary, like nationalist type.
I mean, really, I guess the really simply way to put it, I would kind of see what Bookchin is saying here is that like capitalists are going to act cynically 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100. And it's going like when, and it goes back to kind of like how our culture is molded by the bourgeoisie. Like these things that we get encouraged to participate in is not things that are generally aligned with, the plight of the workers. It's actually in the image of, the capitalists and the bourgeoisie.
Yeah. This is an important point here I wanted to make. Like, while leftists might want to assert that fascism is a right-wing ideology, it's not left or right wing. It's not specific to a wing of the liberal political spectrum. Like, we have to get past this idea of left and right. I don't even think it exists. Personally,
I don't really think it exists either. Like, if
I don't think it exists. I think I talk to like a lot of people about their political views, and like it's really like it's a mixed bag, and it's not even like there's people who like are like against the. I know plenty of trans people, like trans friends, who are against the trans like kids thing, and then I know plenty of like other like people who are like against abortion, but they're like for BLM and all that, and like it's always like a mixed, and it depends on your environment and your experiences. We're talking about people here. We're not like you can't be programmed to a specific like section of like. Well, I guess you can through the media, but everything.
I mean, like the political compass shit. I think is like total horseshit and doesn't make sense at all the way it's like made like. Sign because like you said, people are much more nuanced.
Like it's more like entropy and like stagnation. Does that make any sense? It's not like left or right. It's more like we should put movement into this, or we should like halt this. Does that make any sense? Like I don't think politics is like on a wing. I think it's like there's like a.
So. I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing because it's like if I was to try and define, if I was to define, depending on how I describe my politics to people, they will either describe it as right wing or left wing, depending on how like what kind of team sports they do. Because I can describe anarchism in a way that's about liberty, your right to own your guns, the like right to pursue your own interests and the right for the government not to tell you what to do. Those all sound like pretty conservative views, right? But at the same time, I could be like, yo, property shouldn't exist. Private property shouldn't exist. The government shouldn't exist, and it's like, I don't think you get more left than that. So like, I'm kind of with you on that it's almost like left and right is there just to divide.
It's just to distract. In my opinion,
it's like the thing that like a common thing people like if you ask people a question, what's the answer to our failing democracy or electoralism? Is it more parties or less parties?
It's got to be more. Like, but
are you sure about that?
When you have the Democratic Party like talking about like there's
the answer is no. The answer is no parties, 0 parties.
Yes.
I was not making a reference there with the okay. I'm just like saying 0.
Well, well.
The idea is that when you lock people into a certain,
well, it depends. I was thinking more so like in terms of like our current stage, but like ultimately I agree with you. First, well, there's a lot of things that we need to tackle first before we even like get to like that, like before we like completely like reshape our political system. We need to get money out of politics. That's number one. And if we don't do that, then everything's gonna be fucked forever. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. And unfortunately, that's where it's gonna be unless we're really willing to have a general strike or something.
That's really what needs to come down to, because
it's coming down to that. It's coming down to that.
Remember, there was like a really, really important point that we brought up last week that really ties into this very well, and that's that the top 10% of wealthy people in the United States are single-handedly responsible for saying our economy is growing. Okay, the top 10% have more wealth than the bottom 90%, so they can trade fake pieces of paper all day long on their little computers and still say that the economy is growing while it costs twice as much as it did last year to get your groceries. So there's a huge fucking contradiction there. And so getting money out of politics, while it sounds like a great idea, I think like we need to, like you said, general strike. I would go so far to say a debt strike. I would go so far to say like student loan strike. Like just
student loan strike.
Stop paying your fucking bills, guys. It's gonna hurt for a few years, but I promise you.
I'm calling it right now. I tell everyone, burn your student loans. Don't pay them.
Don't pay your student loans. I mean, it's gonna hurt for a couple years, and then they're gonna see. That fucking almost $2 trillion.
I'm not going to recommend that. This is not financial advice.
No, it's not financial advice, but it worked for me.
This is not financial advice. Please don't take this as financial.
Trash your credit for a few years. Fuck your fucking school debt, because it's a way to freaking extract rent from you from the rest of your life. Okay, I firmly believe that there's an element of putting people into the institution of college as a means to have them be indebted servants for the rest of their lives. You've seen that stuff on Twitter. You've seen that stuff on Facebook, where a lady could be in her 50s or 60s and she's still paying freaking $800 a month to her fucking school loans. That's just like a lifetime of having money being taken out of your pocket for an education that was supposed to help you put money into your pocket. So I'm kind of firmly of the belief of like just trashing your credit for a few years, waiting for them to come back and be like, all right, we'll settle with you. Or like it's just if we all realize, and instead of getting like hooked thinking about like game theory and how we have to just like that people are going to like be self-interested, if we all just trusted each other and we all just striked at the same time and we all just did that shit, like the banks would be fucked within a week. You have 100 million people.
That's why they crush railroad strikes immediately, because they can shut down the fucking country.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you shut down the country, they get scared, and that's the point.
Like, do you remember?
No one knows that's the point. We'd rather block traffic or like do some other weird shit.
I'm like
go to a wedding and like.
I really hope a debt strike happens, because
let me read this one last quote. Okay. The old ignorant Malthusian notions of the absolute overpopulation or the modern lugubrious chance of birth control as a necessary solution of poverty are thus abundantly exploded by facts. It is worth noting that this reactionary propaganda is still maintained not only in clerical conservative quarters, but also by the would-be progressives.
Mm-hmm.
Privatizing water while sold as that's written in 1934. By the way, privatizing water while sold as a means to innovate is actually a means to an end, the advancement of production and technique. Technological innovation will happen one way or another and eventually gets into the way of profits, but the true innovation is these policies that encourage is an enclosure by transforming commonly held resources into privately owned assets. So water privatization is a massive heightening of contradictions and a drastic move. So this should be shocking to everybody. This is not a drill. This is they're really talking about it now. And this if this is in the talks, you already know that it's, there's a plan lined out.
So I wonder what that's going to look like. Does that, because I mean, we pay our water bills, so technically, it's available to us, but it's still kind of commoditized in a way that we're paying the government to use the water utilities. So if it was privatized, would that mean that kind of like we get our utility?
It would be like Comcast. You know how like
yeah. So you get a utility bill from Nestle.
Yeah, how like Comcast and like T-Mobile, like they all have they basically own a monopoly on the market. That would basically be the same exact thing. It would be like you pay for your water bill to a private company. It's not a public utility anymore. It'd be
like you pay instead of
they can shut it off at any time. They can shut it off whenever they want.
Crazy.
And I showed in the document they don't want anyone suing them. They don't want any sort of public
and especially in light of freaking water that was all shut off during the Maui fires, it's just like,
they
could do that shit again.
Then you begin to wonder, maybe this is all connected. The water crisis. Remember when Kamala Harris said that there's going to be a water crisis not too long ago?
Yeah, was that a Freudian slip? Sometimes I can't tell if they're actually like, oh, did they accidentally just give away the game, or are they just so high on drugs all the time because they can't form complete sentences sober that they just spew things. That's what I don't know about Kamala. Sometimes Kamala just says things and I don't know whether she's accidentally giving away the game or just shooting from the hip. But that's crazy.
I can't find that video, but here is Bill Burr.
Which one were you looking for?
Kamala Harris saying, there's going to be a water emergency or something like that.
Pull up Bill Burr. I'll see if I can find it.
Classic Bill Burr on his response to the Nestle CEO who thinks that your water is not a human right.
Stuff that they focus on. You know what I mean? There's a guy from Nestle that doesn't think water is a human right. I mean, that guy should be hunted down and shot. Yeah. Right? And they're going to sit and just talk about, talking about all the, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, we got to get America back to work.
It's like, dude, this guy wants to own the rain. Can we do something about this guy? He was at Nestle. You're supposed to be happy, making cocoa for people. And this guy's going, well, people are running out of water. What if we owned all the water and we kept it under our place? And in the future, when everybody's... That's how I picture the guy talking. I want to own the water. I want to have it underneath my house. And just... I'll come to the door in a robe, slightly ajar. Right? Just a complete animal.